And then there was Quaithe of the Shadow, that strange woman in the red lacquer mask, with all her cryptic counsel. Was she an enemy too, or only a dangerous friend? Dany could not say. Just a little free jam George Martin poetry there. The woman in the red lacquer mask. Tim, are there stories about red masks that George Martin might be drawing inspiration from?
Well, we got two possibilities. One is Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death, and the other is the Pallid Mask, which is part of The King in Yellow. And we'll be going over both later on in this stream.
We will, Tim. Looks like we've got an outline or something here. What's all this? Oh my goodness, did somebody go through and beautify the document with different fonts and colors last night? Welcome, friends. It's the Quaithe stream, and we are here to share. Oh, look at you.
I wanted to wear... originally, I was planning to come on with my full Shadow Man costume, but the strap broke. Strap broke while I was getting ready, so we're just gonna rock the Church of Starry Wisdom instead.
Yeah, it's you're such a disappointment, Tim. And I'll show everyone.
I gotta put it back together now.
Well, it's probably pretty hot in Pennsylvania. I know it's hot in Sacramento, so yes, just hold it there. That works. So yeah, this is my new pendant, everyone. It's got a Mexican fire opal in it, and looks a little Eye of Euron. I picked it up recently this week. All right, we've got gifted memberships. So we're here, folks. We're here to talk about Quaithe, obviously. And there are three major theories as to who Quaithe might be. And that's what we're going to talk about. So first, we're going to talk about Quaithe as a person or as an identity, what their motivations appear to be, their riddles, what a shadowbinder is, what Quaithe's been up to, what the Church of Starry Wisdom might be about. We're going to talk about that Mask of the Red Death, as well as a little Robert Chambers riffing off of that. There's a chain of literary genius going on, and we're going to fill you in on that chain. And then we're going to get to Quaithe's her quotes in the text. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about, is she Ashara Dayne? Perhaps. Or is she perhaps Shiera Seastar? Or is Quaithe Elissa Farman? Or is Quaithe just Quaithe? It's always possible. But
yeah, not
probably one of these three people.
Identity.
Yeah. So we'll see. We're gonna outline all three theories. It's not going to be one of those ones where we can come to a conclusive conclusion, but we will definitely talk about what there is to know with each theory. So there we go. And so Quaithe at face value. That seems like a pun, Tim. For someone wearing a mask. What do you think?
Yeah, because we don't see her face, and without knowing like anything, we don't know who she is. We don't know if she is going to be any of these three characters that we're going to bring up, or if Quaithe is just Quaithe. If she's exactly what she says on the tin, just a shadow woman from Asshai. And then if that ends up being the case, then who knows what she looks like underneath there? Since people in Asshai, at least the native Asshai, tend to always wear masks or veils and hide their true face.
Yeah, so you never know. And we've got some quotes about the strange people from Asshai and try to glean what we can from that. But yeah, so what we basically know is that Quaithe seems to be using glass candles to mess with Dany's dreams. We don't know how much, but we know she's in there talking to her. And then we know Quaithe is astral projectioning and talking to Dany. We meet Quaithe in Qarth, but then we see her in person in Qarth. But after that, she appears to be appearing remotely. So maybe she's in Asshai. Who knows? Hard to say. I always picture her in a dark, oily stone sanctum somewhere, in a tower. I don't know, using the candle. So that's what seems to be going on with Quaithe. And of course, there's the constant Quaithe riddle. To go north, you must journey south. To reach the west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. To touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. It's kind of like a dark version of the hokey pokey. You know, you put your right leg east, and then you put your right leg west. You shake it all about something. I'm not sure, but we'll try to figure out what that is talking about. What Quaithe is up to. Is she trying to guide Dany? Is she trying to use Dany? To what ends? And then, like I said, Church of Starry Wisdom, founded by the Bloodstone Emperor. Kind of a nefarious fellow. So does that imply that Quaithe is nefarious? Or is there, is there more complexity? Is there a wrinkle in all that 10,000 years of time? And I'm going to quiz Tim a little bit about the Black Sarcophagus and some other things so that we can try to figure out what it is that the Church of Starry Wisdom might be trying to do with Dany and or Jon or anybody else, the prince that was promised, etc. Yeah, but let's get into this Mask of the Red Death here, because this, I believe, really does set the stage for what Martin was envisioning when he dreamed up this character, and I think we're going to see these ideas sprinkled throughout many of the quotes that we're about to read.
Yeah, so Mask of the Red Death is short story originally by Edgar Allan Poe. It uses very much relies on wordplay because we have mask, M-A-S-Q-U-E, for a masquerade, a ball, and mask, M-A-S-K, like the type that Quaithe wears. And Mask of the Red Death is a story about a sickness that hits the land, and it's very much seems like it sounds a lot like the bloody flux that's currently going on in Marine. And also sort of like the real life Ebola scare that we had some years back. The Red Death causes its victims to bleed out of their pores, out of every orifice, leaving them at the end with just like this red bloody face before they expire. And the Prince Prospero decides that he is going to seclude himself. He's going to quarantine himself away with a bunch of his friends and a bunch of suck-ups and lickspittles, and they're just going to party their time away and just wait for this whole thing to blow over. But at some point during the party, they will be visited by a character called the Stranger. And the Stranger will be wearing a funeral shroud and a red mask that makes him look like a victim of the Red Death. When he enters, he appears in a room that is a black room. They set up this room full of all these vibrant, beautiful colors, but there's a black room with red windows, and it makes the whole room look like blood. This is where the Stranger first appears. And when he comes into the main hall, everyone is too afraid. Even though the prince demands that he be seized, everyone is too afraid to approach him. Finally, the prince confronts him himself, but afterwards he immediately drops dead. And then it's revealed that when that happens and people finally do try to rush the Stranger, it's revealed that there was nothing underneath the shroud, and all the partygoers are dead, and all that's left is the remains of the Red Death.
And so, it obviously, there's a couple things that bells going off for Ice and Fire. The Stranger, the Wanderer from Far Places, who does represent death, in the gods of the seven. In one of the humble country chapels, Catelyn sees the Stranger's face depicted as a black shadow with stars for eyes, so it's kind of mask-like. And we see that Wanderer from Far Places that brings death is also applied to the Comet, which is a red wanderer and a herald of doom in the end times and change and maybe some moon meteors. So Quaithe comes along in this sort of tradition as this stranger, and she is talking about the future, omens of the end of the world potentially. So it's definitely unnerving. Like, by using this mask and keeping her mysterious, George is tapping into this ambiance of the masked stranger. Even though Quaithe might actually turn out to be somewhat helpful and not simply an instrument of death. But that certainly is a creepy way to start the vibes, isn't it?
Yeah, because George is all about his parallels, his foils, but also the subversion of expectations. So to have someone spooky like Quaithe show up, someone who by looks and demeanor alone makes you think like, okay, they're up to something. But if it turns out like, no, they were actually a good person trying to help Dany the entire time. But we really don't know because of how cryptic she is and what exactly is she driving Dany towards. Is she benevolent? Is she wicked? Is she morally gray? We really have no clue what this character is all about and what her end game is.
And then furthermore, there's a couple other things we think of, like, for example, the faceless men who wear masks, and they are no one. So who's under the mask? No one, and they are obviously, emissaries of the stranger, of the god of death, who literally bring death into the room. So there's a few ways that George is using Mask of the Red Death. Also, you might think of the weirwood faces as masks. And certainly Quaithe's red lacquer mask is meant to make us think of the weirwood mask, which is a wooden mask, that is lacquered red, if you will, with frozen blood. And we see that with Melisandre, too. Melisandre symbolizes a weirwood. Even though she burns weirwoods and hates the old gods, in terms of archetypal symbolism, she's doing a Nissa Nissa weirwood sorceress, because the original Nissa Nissa seems to be in the weirwood, capable of dispensing the ancient starry wisdom, if you will. And so we see these characters like Quaithe and Melisandre and Stoneheart, who are kind of like the stranger and kind of like a strange death goddess, and they do possess wisdom and knowledge from beyond the grave and things like that. So there's an archetype that George is developing here with the weirwood goddess, and Quaithe is part of it with her mask. So then we have this pallid mask king in yellow thing, and this is Chambers inspired by Poe, correct?
Yeah, so every one of these writers that George draws from had, of course, their own inspirations in their time. The King in Yellow was first published in 1895, so this is coming about 50 years after Poe became after Poe's time. And Robert Chambers was very much inspired by Poe. He was also inspired by Ambrose Bierce. It is Ambrose Bierce who first comes up with the name Hastur and the name Carcosa. That's where we get Haisha the shepherd and an inhabitant of Carcosa. Robert W. Chambers then borrows those terms and runs with them as settings for the King in Yellow. Lovecraft, in his time, then being inspired by Bierce and Chambers, then adapts the King in Yellow, and he'll also take terms like Hastur and Carcosa and bring them into his world. And then every writer like Robert E. Howard, who's the creator of Conan, Robert Bloch, the man who created Psycho, all this whole circle of friends and pen pals that write letters. Lovecraft encouraged them, like, hey, use my characters, use my settings, use all this. And it was like this whole this writers guild, all these friends who just bumped ideas off of one another and shared them. And then George, being inspired by all of these guys, will bring them into his world building. And that's where we get all these Easter eggs, where he'll take whole cloth names and terms like Lang, like Kadath, like Carcosa, like the Church of Starry Wisdom. Church of Starry Wisdom is word for word straight out of Lovecraft, and he'll implement them in his story. But then he'll create something of his own that serves the same narrative purpose, because while the Lovecraft stuff are meant to be Easter eggs, they're not really meant to ever be in the main story. Like, we're never going to go to Kadath or Carcosa, but we can see a place that's like Kadath, a place that's like Carcosa, serving the same narrative function in places like Valyria, in places like the Lands of Always Winter, in the Haunted Forest, in places like that. You're muted.
So even though we see, the classic example is the Others, and Waymar and Garrett in the prologue. Like, even though most of the oblique Lovecraft references are East, we see the theme work used right in the prologue. An alien entity that's just incomprehensible, somebody's mind that's just scrambled from trying to comprehend it, and he's reduced to a gibbering idiot. You know what I mean? That's straight out of Lovecraft. So, not Compton. Straight out of Lovecraft. Both bad places to go if you don't know your way around. But In any case, so the King in Yellow. What's going on here with the pallid masks? A different
So,
mask.
so first I have this quote. This is the opening. This is the thing that troubles me, for I cannot forget Carcosa, where black stars hang in the heavens, where the shadows of men's thoughts lengthen in the afternoon, when the twin suns sink into the lake of Holly, and my mind will bear forever the memory of the pallid mask. So just how I said, like, George will never actually, we'll probably, like I said, we're never really going to go to Carcosa. Maybe if we get animated ET show, that'll play a role, but not in the main story. However, Asshai as a city functions this as the same for the same narrative purpose that Carcosa does as a setting. And again, how George loves his inverses. In Carcosa, we have it is a dual star system of twin suns, and then George takes that, but he inverts it when he creates the Carthene legend of two moons. So you see, like, what he's doing here. He'll take an idea, slightly mold it, tweak it a little bit, and make it his own. That's what he's constantly doing. But in the fictitious play of the King in Yellow, again, we have a character known as the Stranger, who shows up at a masquerade in the city of Carcosa. The Queen Casilda is there, and she demands that he remove his mask. To which he replies, "I wear no mask." Now, the pallid mask is like a lot like the mask that Quaithe wears. It's not red, it's white, but it's blank, it's featureless, it's very unnerving. Actually, I guess you can see that mask I have over there. If it's just like without the smiley face, that would be more like the pallid mask. But that's attached to the wall, so I'm not going to pull it down. But
Fair enough, Tim.
I just move the. Yeah. That's like the pallid mask.
I don't know if it looks exactly like that, but go ahead.
But still, it's a featureless mask, and it causes all of the party goers to reply in shock, like, "No mask, no mask." And this is the King in Yellow. He's wearing his pallid mask. He's wearing his tattered yellow robes. The King in Yellow, he represents forbidden knowledge and lost innocence, and both these things are reflected in Quaithe and her relationship with Dany. Anything with Asshai is always having something to do with forbidden knowledge, because no taboo is looked away from in Asshai. You can, like, that's where blood mages, aeromancers, necromancers, like everyone, any weird, creepy thing you want to do, you're free to do in Asshai. So both the strangers in Poe and Chambers, they present Quaithe as a stranger, and this is like making Quaithe an aspect of death, just like the strangers in Mask and in King in Yellow. And this aspect of death usually appears before the characters during moments of mania, desperation, or other low points. And I've noticed when Quaithe is first introduced to Dany, it's as Dany is coming out of the Red Waste. Khal Drogo is dead. His blood riders have left to form their own calls. Dany not going to Dosh Khaleen with the rest of the Khaleesi's. She's running away. So as far as most Dothraki are concerned, she's an enemy of them now. Most of her group are women, children, and old men. A lot of them die along the way. Her silver dies, the gift that Drogo gave her when she said, like, "Tell Khal Drogo he has given me the wind." Silver dies in the Red Waste. So when Dany's coming out of the Red Waste, like, her barely surviving, she's at a very, very low point. And when she reaches the walls of Qarth, who's there? Like, you come out, you're battered, you're broken, your entire party is fainted, and you're just mere steps away from the Pokemon Center, and who's there? Gary mother freaking Quaithe. Quaithe is there with Zarozon Daxos and Pyat Pri to greet them.
So what happens when the stranger appears to Casilda or somebody else in this story? Do they talk? Does he dispense knowledge? Does he kill people? What happens?
So that's the thing with the King in Yellow is the actual play, The King in Yellow, is only presented to us in bits and fragments. The entire point of to actually read the full play is to is to basically open up the gates and allow the King in Yellow to come through the ether and into the real world.
Yeah, can't
so
do
it's
that.
the whole point of the King in Yellow is that it's a banned story. It's a banned book. It's something that Baylor the Blessed would have had tossed on the fire along with Testimony and Mushroom.
Yeah.
Like
Spark it up.
So what King in Yellow is, it's an anthology series full of short stories where somehow, some way, some character will come upon a copy of the King in Yellow, and for whatever reason, they start reading it. It's like, it's like a horror movie. Don't read the Latin. Don't open that door. Get out of the house. But for whatever reason, they're just compelled to, like, the intrusive thoughts just take over, and they start reading the book, and then creepy, scary things start happening.
Okay,
but
so
there's not an actual fully written King in Yellow play. That defeats the entire purpose.
So it's more about the archetype of the character.
Yeah.
The stranger with a mask. Maybe it's not a mask. Maybe there's nothing under the mask. And they represent death, forbidden knowledge, and sometimes appear to characters when they are on the edge, on the brink. And this is sort of when Quaithe pops into Dany's life as well. And you're talking about, what's this last bit here?
So this is a line from one of the King in Yellow stories. It's called the Demoiselle Dice, and she says she's talking to a main character, Philip, where she comes up with this line: "To come is easy and takes hours. To go is different and make take centuries." And that reminded me of what Quaithe says to Dany when Dany is out on the Dothraki Sea, when she's drinking the tainted water, she's having dysentery, she might be having a miscarriage. She sees Quaithe up in there, and she says her mask is made of starlight. She repeats the riddle of, to go north, you must go south. But then she says, remember who you are, Dany. The dragons remembered to you. And the whole point is the shared symbolism. A character is expressing the idea that leaving or a place or situation can be much more difficult and time-consuming than arriving, even if it seems simple at first glance. And this is Dany's current predicament with Meereen, of you need to leave. Like, we understand why you were trying to make things in Meereen work, but this is not your place. You need to go west. The act of going can take significantly longer than coming, and this is a metaphor for the difficulty of letting go of something. Dany having difficulty letting go of Meereen, of her new subjects, of all the slaves that she has freed. Everyone's that's calling her Misa, even though it's no longer serving her. The process of leaving is emotionally draining. It takes a long time to fully detach from. And this line, both from Quaithe and from the Mademoiselle in the King and Yell story, comes from an otherworldly character. This adds to the sense of unease and strange, giving the story a supernatural quality. Spoiler alert for the Mademoiselle Dice. For a 130-year-old story, it turns out she had been dead the entire time, and what Philip was talking to was a ghost. So, supernatural, spooky entity, Quaithe, astral projecting, her mask is made of starlight, all this stuff.
Well, speaking of, let's go ahead and get into these quotes here, because this is kind of getting defined. There's not a lot. There's only a few scenes that Quaithe is in, so we might as well just read them and see where that goes. Oh, my friend Elizabeth, could Quaithe's mask help her see through the Weirwood network if it's made of weirwood? Yes. If it were made of weirwood, it does seem that cut weirwood has some amount of magical power. We don't know how much, but it does seem that that is the case. So yes, if the mask was made of weirwood, that could do something. It seems like astral projection through the candle is her main way of gaining knowledge. But who knows? Who knows? So yeah, it's definitely meant as a symbolic parallel. So as always, it is a question of, okay, there's a symbolic parallel. Is there a literal connection? So we shall see. It seems like there is, we're going to talk about this, a parallel between Bloodraven tutoring Bran and Quaithe, tutoring Dany. So,
yeah.
Let's see here. So Quaithe in the text, misshapen statues. These are a couple of quotes about Asshai.
Mm-hmm.
And so beyond the Horse Gate, plundered gods, and this is in Vaste Dothrak, and stolen heroes loomed to either side of them. The forgotten deities of dead cities brandished their broken thunderbolts at the sky as Dany rode her silver past their feet. Stone kings looked down on her. I'm sorry, I should stop making that joke. Looked down on her from their thrones, their faces chipped and stained, even their names lost in the mists of time. Stained with dab sauce, those stoned kings. You got it. Live young maidens danced on marble plinths, draped only in flowers, or poured air from shattered jars. I like that, pouring the air. It's very, very descriptive. Monsters stood in the grass beside the road, black iron dragons with jewels for eyes, roaring griffins, manticores with their barbed tails poised to strike, and other beasts she could not name. Some of the statues were so lovely they took her breath away. Others, so misshapen and terrible, that Dany could scarcely bear to look at them. Those, Ser Jorah said, had likely come from the Shadowlands beyond Asshai.
Mm-hmm.
And also H.P. Lovecraft's imagination.
Yeah. This is something I covered when I did my Color Out of Asshai video, where I was talking about the Lovecraftian influences on Asshai. I brought up this quote because it's possible that what's happening in Asshai, given the seemingly radioactive nature of it, that could be from the aftermath of a meteor strike, the effect that it would have on people living there may have left the people deformed, and that may be why the people of Asshai are always wearing masks or cloaked in veils, and that these statues with their twisted, misshapen features might be sculptures of what the Asshai currently really look like. Muted again.
They might not be monsters, they might be the Asshai themselves. And shout out to Eldrick Stoneskin in the chat, which is a little rambunctious today. That's okay, we love you. All right, so Tim, this is going to be for you. Why don't you read this quote here?
Okay. She enjoyed watching all the people too. Dark, solemn Asshai and tall, pale Carthene, the bright-eyed men of Yi-Ti in monkey-tail hats, warrior maids from Biasabad, Shaminara, and Kayakanaya, with iron rings in their nipples and rubies in their cheeks. Even the dour and frightening shadow men, who covered their arms and legs and chests with tattoos and hid their faces behind masks. Yes, this is part of the costume. These aren't real tattoos, just so everyone knows.
Lame. I thought you'd been hiding like sleeves the whole time. I was like, is he always wearing long sleeves? He never showed his tats. They're fake.
I do have real tattoos. They're just on my legs, so you never see them.
No, you gotta stick your leg up on the camera. Come on. Okay. We'll expect a sleeve by next week, Tim. Okay. All right. Well, Tim is in character at least. But yeah. So, covering their arms and legs and chests with tattoos and hid their faces behind masks. So the tattoos, even the tattoos could be hiding like weird skin disfiguration or something, like scales or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Depending on what the tattoos are, if they're symbols, they might be, since the shadow men are the ones who go to Stagai and perform rituals and rites, like it could be like the symbols used in their magic. I think of like transmutation circles or something. By getting that tattooed directly onto the skin saves like having to bring out any other kinds of elements or other kinds of ingredients to perform the magic. It's just right there. You're always carrying your tools with you.
Yeah, I would tend to think that they're spells or something, as opposed to like pirates and, dragons and stuff. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's some dragons, but they'd be like sacred geometry dragons that would help you do spells. Who knows? Like you said, everything is allowed in Asshai. It's essentially like 4chan. It's a very strange university. And this is Miriam Azdur. When I was younger and more fair, I went in... sorry, I won't do that. I went in caravan to Asshai by the shadow to learn from their mages. Ships... Bad stereotype voice. Ships from many lands came to Asshai, so I lingered long to study the healing ways of distant peoples. A moon singer of the Jogos Nai gifted me with her birthing songs. A woman of your own writing people taught me the magics of grass and corn and horse. And a maester from the sunset lands opened a body for me and showed me all the secrets that hide beneath the skin. So you really can learn a lot of stuff in Asshai. It's not just dark magic. You can learn some surgery. You can learn midwifery, the magics of grass and corn and horse. You can learn some Dothraki basic techniques there. You can learn basically anything, actually. So maybe the reputation is really bad because the weather is bad, and it's actually like essentially Old Town of the East. You know, got a library there and lots of scholars.
Yeah. But the opposite side of that is, while this maester from the Sunset Lands, who we'll later find out is Marwyn the Mage, was showing Mirri Maz Duur this stuff by beneath the skin, showing her bodies. He was using corpses. Other times, though, we have someone like Qyburn, who is trying to discover the secrets of life through vivisection and cutting open people while they're still alive and still awake, no anesthesia. So that's also allowed in Asshai.
Got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? Sorry, eggs. So, Quaithe's introduction, this quote, there's not a whole lot to it. Jogo, he goes to Qarth. He comes back. I've returned with 3 who would look on you with their own eyes. Dany stared down at the strangers. So there's that line. These are the strangers. And it says, the woman in the lacquered wooden mask said in the common tongue, of the 7 kingdoms, I am Quaithe of the Shadow. We come seeking dragons. So, like Tim said, it's this moment when her little fledgling Khalasar is just on the edge. People are dying, got no food. And so they hole up at Vaes Toloro and send, 3 riders out. And this is what we find. We find Qarth. And so they go to Qarth. And in Qarth, it says, all the great of Qarth will come to see my dragons, Dany thought. Yet she thanked Xaro for his kindness before she sent him on his way. Pyat took his leave as well, vowing to petition the Undying Ones for an audience, an honor rare as summer snows. Before he left, and I always forget that one. It's yet another Undying Ones are others clue, the summer snows. But before he left, he kissed her bare feet with his pale blue lips and pressed her on her a gift, a jar of ointment that he swore would let her see the spirits of the air. Last of the 3 seekers to depart was Quaithe, the shadowbinder. From her, Dany received only a warning. Beware, the woman in the red lacquer mask said. Of whom? Of all. They shall come day and night to see the wonder that has been born again into the world, and when they see, they shall lust. For dragons are fire made flesh, and fire is power. When Quaithe was gone, Ser Jorah said, she speaks truly, my queen, though I like her no more than the others. And that kind of sums up Quaithe. Like, yeah, she's right, but it makes me nervous. I do not understand her, Dany says. Pyat and Xaro had showered Dany with promises from the moment they first glimpsed her dragons, declaring themselves her loyal servants, but from Quaithe she had gotten only the rare cryptic word, and it disturbed her that she had never seen the woman's face. Remember Mirri Maz Duur, she told herself. Remember treachery. Thank you, Bebe the Bard. So, what do you make of that? Just kind of building the atmosphere, right?
Yeah. And here we're really seeing the naivety that Dany still has early in the story that she has to grow out of. Where she says, like, I don't understand her. Pyat and Xaro had showered her with promises. And it's like, well, you just met these guys. Promises are great, but are they going to fulfill them? Like, you probably shouldn't be putting trust and hopes into these people. And everything about not just the Undying, but the Warlocks and even just the Qartheen in general is all other talk. How they're referred to as pale milkmen. They have milk in their veins, according to the Dothraki. The Warlocks have the blue lips, so it's all this white and blue imagery that makes you think of others. And then Qarth controls the Jade Gates, and the Jade Gates is like it's more Green Sea metaphor. And they're talking about how George loves his use of foils and parallels. The Jade Gates serves as a parallel to the Black Gate in the far north. It's this physically, it's just a toll. It seems like it's just a toll booth. Get through the Jade Gates to continue on to the far, far east. But symbolically, it is a gate blocking access to the Green Sea, and who is guarding it is symbolic others.
Don't make me bring up the stone cow of Pharos, Tim. The lighthouse moon statue. But look, yes, and there's also the 13 who sit on wooden thrones dreaming of past glories. So they sound like retired green seers of some kind. But yeah, I think the key is that Quaithe is sort of putting her finger on something, moving the plot here. She's putting her finger on an important truth. And she'll build on this in her next quote when she urges Dany to leave Qarth. So we see that as far as like ascertaining Quaithe's motivations, we see that Quaithe is interested in the dragons. She came to see the dragons the first time, and she's telling her everyone else is going to come see them. Watch out. Fire is power. They're going to lust after them. Jorah's like, yeah, that sounds about right. So then we come to the fiery ladder in the market in Qarth. When the fiery ladder stood 40 feet high, the mage leapt forward and began to climb it, scrambling up hand over hand as quick as a monkey. Each rung he touched dissolved behind him, leaving no more than a wisp of silver smoke. When he reached the top, the ladder was gone, and so was he. A fine trick, announced Jogo with admiration. No trick, a woman said in the common tongue. Dany had not noticed Quaithe. No one expects the Quaithe Inquisition. In the crowd, yet there she stood, eyes wet and shiny, behind the implacable red lacquer mask. What mean you, my lady? Half a year gone, the men could scarcely wake fire from dragonglass. He had some small skill with powders and wildfire, sufficient to entrance a crowd, while his cutpurses did their work. He could walk across hot coals and make burning roses bloom in the air, but he could no more aspire to climb the fiery ladder than a common fisherman could hope to catch a kraken in his nets. Dany looked uneasily at where the ladder had stood. Even the smoke was gone now, and the crowd was breaking up, each man going on about his business. And I skipped a bit here. In a moment, more than a few would find their purses flat and empty. And now his powers grow, Khaleesi, and you are the cause of it. Me? She laughed. How could that be? The woman stepped closer and laid 2 fingers on Dany's wrist. You are the mother of dragons, are you not? She is, and no spawn of shadows may touch her. Jogo brushed Quaithe's fingers away with the handle of his whip. The woman took a step backward. You must leave this city soon, Daenerys Targaryen, or you will never be permitted to leave it at all. Dany's wrist still tingled where Quaithe had touched her. Where would you have me go? She asked. To go north, you must go south, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, pass beneath the shadow. Asshai, Dany thought. She would have me go to Asshai. Will the Asshai give me an army? She demanded. Will there be gold for me in Asshai? Will there be ships? She sounds like the tickler. Where's the gold? Is Lord Beric in the village? Is there ships? What will there be in Asshai that I will not find in Qarth? Truth, said the woman in the mask, and bowing, she faded back into the crowd. So then Ricardo says, with contempt through his drooping black mustachios, Khaleesi, better a man should swallow scorpions than trust in the spawn of shadows, who dare not show their face beneath the sun. It is known. It is known, Aggo agreed. And then Zarzo and Daxos pipes in, your savages are wiser than they know. Such truths as the Asshai horde are not like to make you smile. Your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, so again, we're early. This is Clash, so we're still early in the story. Because George's original plan was for Dany to go to Asshai, and somewhere along the line, he decided to scrap that idea. But there is still the chance that she may see Asshai through a glass candle. But we know that in Asshai there are rare books. Asshai is the secret of hidden knowledge. It's what makes it the Carcosa stand-in, a Kadath stand-in, all of this. We know that, Egg, when he was trying to bring back dragons, sent for books from Asshai. Aegon III sent for fire mages from Essos. It's one quick line we're given in the World of Ice and Fire. We probably won't know where exactly they came from until we get our sequel of Fire and Blood, but pretty good chance that some of them might have come from Asshai. like all this dragon lore, dragon knowledge, and everything else that could be waiting if she were to go there. More than likely, she's not. Quaithe is still trying to lead her there with the riddle of to go north, you must go south. It sounds like, yeah, this is the direction of going Asshai, but it also sounds like sailing across the Sunset Sea, going east to go west, if that's a possibility, which we've talked about many, many, many times. And then, of course, there is what I brought up with Mademoiselle Diaz, which is the idea of like, look, going back means requiring you to give up things along the way, and not sticking around too long, not getting comfortable because you have duties and things, and you have obligations elsewhere. That's where your focus should be on. Muted again.
There's this thing that Dany repeats to herself: if I look back, I'm lost, right? Mm-hmm. And it's particularly in the first book, or when she's unsure of what to do and she has this sense like, I need to charge straight through this mess, or I'll get stuck.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Right.
Yep.
But then also, to go forward, you must go back. So there is some level at which Dany must learn about the past and reconcile herself to the truth of where Valyria and the Targaryens come from. I think that is the meaning. And that is the truth that's waiting for her in Asshai. It's not like to make anyone smile, but it's probably something she needs to understand.
I mean, it also echoes the very first line in the very first book. We should start back when we have our rangers north of the wall and we see the others for the first time in the prologue.
The other thing that strikes me about this is that Dany is talking about her more immediate concerns. Oh, I need an army. I need gold. I need this and that. And Quaithe is like, to go north, you must go south. To touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. Quaithe is talking about existential questions on a bigger scope. And so she's sort of tugging at Dany's consciousness, being like, no, your problems are actually bigger. Your challenges are bigger than just gold and an army. You need to figure out how to touch the light and how to go back to go forward. Like, these are deeper things that she is trying to get Dany to think about. And obviously, going north, touching the light, has to do with using the dragons against the others to end the darkness of the long night. That's not hard for us to see. Harder for Dany to see because she doesn't know about the others. But for us, the reader, by the end of book 5, we can see that that is what Quaithe is probably talking about, which is kind of the central thing about Quaithe that I think people miss, is that she, on some level, wants Dany to use the dragons against the others. And that seems to be right. You know what I mean? Like, Dany's not supposed to use her dragons to conquer Westeros and reestablish the Targaryen dynasty. That's not the goal, right? That's the trick. That's the false trap that she's got to see through to save the world. So, yeah.
Yeah. It also could mean, like, touching the light, passing beneath the shadow means getting what you want is going to require you to go through certain hardships. Like, again, Dany talking about Pyat Pri and Zaros on Daxos, making them all these promises and pleasantries. And it's like, no, girl, this stuff is what you want is not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You're going to go through the motions. Bad things are going to happen. And you're going to just have to fight your way through that. And that's when we get, later on, we'll get our quote about the three betrayals that she will suffer, one for love and one for gold. And what was the third one?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can't figure out which one is which anyway. Who cares? That's from the Undying Warlocks. We don't have to talk about that today. But yeah, betrayals, lots of them. But yes, Valley of the Shadow of Death. You have to pass through. Fear no evil. You come out the other side. This is Pilgrim's Progress stuff here. So why don't you read this one here? This is where it starts to get real. Oh, and you guys, by the way, shame on you, chat. I called this Fiery Ladder / Quaithe Magical 2-Finger Touch. And I didn't see any dirty comments in the chat. Very disappointed. Go ahead, read this next one, Tim.
Oh, and So after she touches her and it tingles, and it's like she got her with that icy hot. There's our ice and fire symbolism.
Well, this is interesting because the show did the ice version of it, where Night King marks Bran, and there is a castle on the wall called Ice Mark. So, it could be that there's something to this, the magical marking. The most logical, yes, I did say that, baby. The most logical idea is that Quaithe is establishing a link, so it's easier for her to project herself into Dany's dreams later, which is what she starts doing right after that scene. So, hard to say much beyond that, other than you've got the touch. So it's probably some magical marking. Would you agree, Tim?
Yeah, it's placing a mark on her. It's again like marking her, and it's like now I can find. And it's that creepiness too, because it means like, well, now I can find you anywhere. We're linked. you're never safe for me. I could be anywhere at any time, and that's what happens. Like when the second time that Quaithe shows up, and she's in the dark corner of the room while Dany's trying to sleep in her ship cabin. It's like she's just there, and then she's gone.
Sean says you should light some candles before the two-finger touch. That's true. Set the mood. That's good. Go ahead and read it, Tim.
So, that night she dreamt that she was Rhaegar, riding to the Trident, but she was mounted on a dragon, not a horse. When she saw the usurpers' rebel host across the river, they were armored, all in ice. But she bathed them in dragon fire, and they melted away like dew and turned the Trident into a torrent. Some small part of her knew that she was dreaming, but another part exulted. This is how it was meant to be. The other was a nightmare, and I have only now awakened. She woke suddenly in the darkness of her cabin, still flushed with triumph. Balerion seemed to wake her with her, and she heard the faint creak of wood, water lapping against the hull, a footfall on the deck above her head, and something else. Someone was in the cabin with her. Eerie, Jiqui, where are you? Her handmaids did not respond. It was too black to see, but she could hear them breathing. Jorah, is that you? They sleep, a woman said. They all sleep. The voice was very close. Even dragons must sleep. She is standing over me. Who's there? Dany peered into the darkness. She thought she could see a shadow, the faintest outline of a shape. What do you want of me?
Hold on right a second here, Tim. I just want to say, this is really creepy. When I was rereading it, I was like, I've forgotten how creepy this is. Like, she's standing right over the bed. This is like, have you ever had the sleep paralysis demon?
Yeah, your sleep paralysis.
This is Quaithe as a sleep paralysis demon. Yeah, it's...
Yeah. You took so much Benadryl, and now you wake up to see the Hat Man. Like, this is no longer a safe place.
Tim, do you have something you need to share with the group and work out here, or?
Oh, do you not know of the Hat Man and the Ben taking bennies?
The Hat Man?
The Hat Man.
You're gonna get us demonetized. Just keep reading the quote.
Quaithe. Oh, remember who you are. To go north, you must journey south. To reach the west, you must go east. To go forward, you must go back. And to touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. Quaithe. Dany sprung from the bed and threw open the door. Pale yellow lantern light flooded the cabin. King in yellow, king in yellow. And Eerie and Jaqui sat up sleepily. Khaleesi, murmured Jaqui, rubbing her eyes. Viserion woke and opened his jaws, and a puff of flame brightened even the darkest corners. There was no sign of a woman in a red lacquer mask. Khaleesi, are you unwell? A dream. Dany shook her head. I dreamt a dream, no more. Go back to sleep. All of us go back to sleep. Yet try as she might, sleep would not come again. Mute it.
Yeah, I was scrolling in the wrong place. Okay, cool. So yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to go back to sleep either. Right? But this is the point. This is astral projection. This is the first time we know it happened. In the next quote, she'll say that's what she was doing here. But you can tell because she's there but not there. No one else can see or hear her. So she only exists in Dany's mind, essentially. She's not, And that's not even, I don't know if that's exactly astral projection. If she's only projecting into Dany's mind and no one else can see her, then she's not really there. She's only in Dany's mind. It's not, astral projection would be like a force ghost in the room that everyone could see. Okay, so I don't know what you want to call it, but it's she is projecting herself into Dany's brain, and talking to her, and it looks like she is in the room, but she's not. So that's fun. And so here we have the sequel to that. This is atop the pyramid in Meereen. This is in Dance. But Quaithe refers back to the last scene here. So she says, this is Dany. A bath will help soothe me. She padded barefoot through the grass, blah, 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 terrace pool. She's in the bath. She closed her eyes and floated. A soft rustle made her open them again. So she's kind of on the edge of falling asleep. Probably makes her brain more susceptible to Quaithe visitation, I would think. It says, she sat up with a soft splash. Miss Sunday, she called. Eerie? Cheeky? They sleep, came the answer. A woman stood under the persimmon tree, clad in a hooded robe that brushed the grass. Beneath the hood, her face seemed hard and shiny. She's wearing a mask, Dany knew. A wooden mask finished in dark red lacquer. Quaithe? Am I dreaming? She pinched her ear and winced at the pain. She's like, no, I'm awake. She's doing that, you know, lucid dreaming stuff. That's cool. I dreamt of you on Balerion when we first came to Astapor, which is kind of a low-key way for Dany to describe, you appeared over my bed as a terrifying sleep paralysis demon in Astapor. She's just like, oh no, I dreamt about you. And then Quaithe says, you did not dream, then or now. What are you doing here? How did you get past my guards? I came another way. Your guards never saw me. If I call out, they will kill you. They will swear to you that I am not here. Are you here? No. Hear me, Daenerys Targaryen. Are you here? No. That's great. No, I'm not here. Okay. Hear me, Daenerys Targaryen. The glass candles are burning. Soon comes the pale mare, and after her, the others. Kraken and Dark Flame, Lion and Griffin, the Sun's Son, and the Mummer's Dragon. Trust none of them. Remember the Undying. Beware the perfumed seneschal. So here's more of this Mask of the Red Death stuff, where Quaithe is literally talking about the pale mare. So there's your pale mask and your, obviously, your disease and your revelation, the pale mare from Revelation, and the others. So this is talking about doom and destruction, harbingers of ill omen, you know. So it's pretty much straight out of the function of both the Chambers and the Poe story. Not actually killing people, but speaking of the disease that will kill people, which is what the Mask of the Red Death is referring to. So it's a pretty tight correlation. And then she says, Resnack, why should I fear him? Dany rose from the pool, water trickled down her legs, and goose flesh covered her arms in the night air. If you have some warning for me, speak plainly. What do you want of me, Quaithe? Moonlight shone in the woman's eyes. To show you the way. I remember the way. I go north to go south, east to go west, back to go forward, and to touch the light I have to pass beneath the shadow. She squeezed the water from her silvery hair. I'm half sick of riddling. In Qarth I was a beggar, but here I'm a queen. I command you. Daenerys, remember the Undying. Remember who you are. The blood of the dragon. But my dragons are roaring in the darkness. I remember the Undying. Child of 3, they called me. 3 mounts, they promised me. 3 fires and 3 treasons. 1 for blood and 1 for gold and 1 for... Your Grace? Missandei stood in the door of the queen's bedchamber, a lantern in her hand. Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Dany glanced toward the persimmon tree. There was no woman there. No hooded robe. No lacquer mask. No Quaithe. A shadow. A memory. No one. So, again, who's under the mask? No one. And it makes you think again of the Faceless Men. So, pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, and the fact that Dany, like, pinches herself to make sure, because so much of the Lovecraftian influence, a lot of it is dream manipulation, that's Cthulhu, or Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, Randolph Carter is lucid dreaming. But here, Dany is not dreaming. She is awake. She makes sure that she's awake. What it seems more like is that, again, it's probably going back to that link, that two-finger touch. Quaithe astral projecting, but only Dany can see her. And if anyone were to walk in and see that, it would look like it does to Missandei. It looks like she's talking to herself. There's no one else in the room. So it probably seems more like only Dany can see her. No one else can. And Quaithe's only allowing Dany to see her. Because as soon as someone else enters the room, she's gone. She's not there. Because I don't want you to look crazy in front of your people.
And then poor Dany. She was the blood of the dragon, but Sir Barristan had warned her that in that blood there was a taint. Could I be going mad? They called her father mad once. And then she says to Missandei, I was praying. It's like, who are you talking to? I was praying to the tree.
Yeah. And that is, yeah, that's a good thing. Like I just said, like, if someone were to walk in and catch Dany talking to herself like that, then people who remember her father might be like, oh God, I think she's going down that road. She's going crazy like her old man did. So it's good that Quaithe just like bamfed out of there as soon as someone else entered the room.
It's pretty funny. It's definitely, because it's like, we've all seen that on the movies or the, some TV show where there's an imaginary friend that only one character can see. And they've got to talk to them when no one else is in the room. But then someone here is like, who are you talking to? Nobody.
Yeah.
So, and then here is the mask of the starry wisdom. She dreamed, all her cares fell away from her, and her pains as well, and she seemed to float upward into the sky. And I noticed that they have that same dreaming and floating language in the last quote atop the pyramid. So here Martin is echoing it as she is dreaming. And this is when she's wandering around in the grass. And this is near the end of that chapter when she's sick and delirious and all that stuff. She was flying once again, spinning, laughing, dancing as the stars wheeled around her and whispered secrets in her ear. To go north, you must journey south. To reach the west. And Dany's like, wait a minute. I know who this is. Quaithe, Dany called. Where are you, Quaithe? Then she saw. Her mask was made of starlight. Remember who you are, Daenerys, the stars whispered in a woman's voice. The dragons know, do you? So, I don't know. I think we've already kind of made the point, but
yeah,
it's a mask. It's more masking. So it's like, what does the mask represent? It represents starry wisdom. It represents the forbidden knowledge, like Tim was saying in those stories. So it's just George kind of developing the idea that Quaithe is a starry wisdom cultist, and that this is the secret behind the mask of Asshai, the mask of shadow, that covers Asshai. Like, what's under there? Dark truths about dragons.
Yep. And that's why, like, using this Church of Starry Wisdom, even though George is most likely using it as just an Easter egg, but the original Church of Starry Wisdom from Lovecraft, the patron deity of that church is Nyarlathotep, the chaos god. And his gifts, we can say his gifts are like Euron's. His gifts are poison. Nyarlathotep is able to bestow gifts upon his followers, but Nyarlathotep is a chaos god. He's a troll, and his gifts never work out right. And that is the story of Nephren Ka, who is a direct influence on Bloodstone Emperor, which I'm sure, like, when we do our world building stream, I will very happily tell the story of Nephren Ka, but that's neither here nor there. But it is, the whole point is that Church of Starry Wisdom is worshiping a god who gives forbidden knowledge, but the price of receiving that knowledge is always so high. It makes it almost, you reach a point where, like, was it really even worth it?
And so it becomes a parallel to the Weirwood Nat, where Bran is paying this very high price, as Bloodraven is paid to gain access to the secret knowledge. So it's kind of a parallel with the fire, dragons, Asshai, glass candles side of things. The Elden Ring stream is coming soon, Golden Lady. That will be the next lore summit, so next month. Well, actually, no, it'll be this month, towards the end of this month, I believe. Tentatively. I speak too soon. I need to firm that up with everybody involved. But yeah, soon. It's coming soon. So this is, excuse me, got the hiccups. This is a Quaithe mask from the show. Very cool. Seeing that. This is artwork by Aaron Griffin. This is concept art. I'm not sure if it was for HBO. You could sort of see how that might have led to this.
Mm.
But in any case, it is really cool. And there's like a strange halo here, kind of like that. Then we've got, of course, Atlantis Morissette's Quaithe. This is the Mask of Starry Wisdom Quaithe. So we just kind of read this quote. And as you can see, Tim, it's hard to tell what color eyes someone's are when they're in the shadows of a wooden mask. Are they purple? Are they blue and green? We'll talk about that. This is Lauren Cannon's Quaithe, which I used for the cover. Outstanding, exceptional, incredible. And this one is by Slavic Starks. This is also the scene we're just reading with Dany in the pool and Quaithe appearing to her, talking about comets or something. And here, this one is by Christina Carroll. Quaithe appearing through the shadows and mists. Very vibey. Love this one. The mask. This one reminds me of your mask the most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It looks like a masquerade ball kind of mask. Yeah. Little eyes wide shut action. So, and then we've got Quaithe by Amok. And this is Quaithe in the Carthene market, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. And let's talk about Ashara Dayne. Ashara Dayne. Is Quaithe Ashara Dayne? This is probably the oldest Quaithe theory. There's not a lot of direct clues. It just sort of could make sense. That's the general vibe of it. Ashara's body was never recovered, famously. And it kind of seems like she's somewhere. We've got a real good idea where she is, and it's probably not Asshai, but it does seem like she's somewhere. The Danes do seem to come from the Great Empire of the Dawn, according to me and other people. So if Ashara Dayne went back to Asshai and became Quaithe, that would be an interesting closing of the loop, in a way. Ashara Dayne seems to have been in on the prince that was promised Rhaegar and Lyanna planning and stuff. So she may have a stake in the end times. That may have given her a head start towards being interested in prophecy, the return of the comet and Azor High Reborn and stuff. So she may have eventually, I don't know how she gets to Asshai. She fakes her own death in Starfall, and then there's like phase 2, and then we get to prophets. And I'm not sure what the phase 2 is, like who sails her to Asshai, how does she get there, what's her connection, why would she go there? This is all fill in the gaps. There's no clues. It's just that she seems to at least know about the prince that was promised and that stuff, because she is close to Rhaegar and she is Elia's lady in waiting, and Elia knows, etc. And then of course Barristan thinks that Dany looks like Ashara, which really, in this, if Ashara Dayne is Quaithe, then we'd look back at this and be like, oh, George is mentioning Ashara Dayne in Dany's storyline, while Quaithe is appearing in Dany's storyline to get us to sort of think about Ashara Dayne, Quaithe. So that's all that really is. But Tim, there are several cons, aren't there?
Yeah, and the cons outweigh the pros in this. And that seems to be that it tends to lead to more evidence that if Ashara Dayne is still alive, that it's probably not Quaithe, but that more than likely she's Gianna Reed, wife of Howland Reed. And that is because of all of the Howl's Moving Castle imagery that we get from Howland Reed. So yeah, no direct evidence, and other theories are stronger. Again, this Gianna Reed theory. So the tourney at Harrenhal. Howland Reed bunks with Ned. It's said that Ashara Dayne danced with many people that night, Ned and Howland among them. The rumor and gossip mill is that she returned to Ned's tent, and that's where this idea that Jon's mother might be Ashara Dayne comes from. But that misses the fact that it wasn't just Ned in that tent. Howland Reed was bunking with him that night. So if Ashara Dayne did return to Ned's tent, it might not be to have seen Ned. That might have been her hooking up with Howland Reed, the little Crannog man. And this is where like a lot of our Hal's Moving Castle imagery comes from. A gray water yeah.
Before you get into the house castle stuff, one clue that I just remembered, when Mira is relating the Night of the Laughing Tree story to Bran, it's all from Howland's point of view, because Howland obviously told the story to Mira. And like Ashara Dayne is just all over the story. So when you consider that the story is Howland's point of view, it's kind of like he's sort of fixated on Ashara, like taking note of who she dances with and what she says to everyone. It's like, bro, you had your eyes on her the whole time, didn't you? So there are some other clues, and I will shout out Indeep Geek here. He has the Ashara Dayne is Jaina Reed theory video of note. He did it several years ago, and it lays out the whole case. It's pretty convincing. So I think that one won me over. So check that one out. And if any mod can track that one down, it's like I said, it's kind of an older video, but yeah, we're not going to go too far into it, but there are some circumstantial clues that this might have been what's going on at the tourney. And then we have the Hal's Moving Castle stuff, Tim.
Yeah. So for those if you're only familiar with the Miyazaki film, Howl's Moving Castle is based upon a novel written in the 80s by, I believe it was a British author who wrote it. But the Miyazaki film is probably the more famous thing. But Howland Reed, so Hal, has a moving castle. Greywater Watch, the seat of House Reed, is a moving castle. It's never in one place very often, and so no one never really knows where it truly is. So that's the first Hal's Moving Castle reference. And then in Hal's Moving Castle, Hal catches a falling star. This is a fire demon by the name of Calcifer. So, but again, this is another one of those cases of the sigils telling a story all of their own. House Dayne, their seat; Starfall, their sigil; the sword Dawn, and a falling star. So Howland Reed catching a falling star would be a symbolic way of saying that he caught Ashara. But then there's also the story of Ashara's fate, where some say that she committed suicide. That after Ned killed her brother Arthur Dayne, that she jumped off a cliff. Now that would also symbolically make her a falling star. Now obviously that does, if she is alive and is Gianna, then that didn't happen, but it still plays into the symbolic imagery of a falling star. And all of this relates back to Hal's Moving Castle.
Right, and then Hal's Moving Castle, we should clarify that there's like star children. They're stars, they fall to Earth, and then they're like beings. One's described as a demon, but it's kind of like a fantasy demon, meaning like entity or whatever. In any case, yeah it's a loose parallel. But then there's some other clues, like with Mira. Mira is the heir of House Reed, even though she has the lady parts. And that is consistent with Dornish law, but not Westeros law. So why are the Crannog men following Dornish law, quote unquote? We've never heard that they are potentially matrilineal, not matrilineal, but just, non-gendered primogeniture. Is that what it would?
Yeah, it would be.
You get it.
It's out of the norm for a northern house. For a house to have a son, even though the son is the younger child, male primogeniture would still be the norm. And yet here at Greywater Watch, Mira Reed is the heir. And while an older daughter being the heir is out of the norm for the North, it is not out of the norm for Dorne, where the heir is the eldest child, regardless of gender.
And Cheryl Baxter, if you're wondering about the moving castle in a swamp thing, check out my video about the Crannog men. I explained what Crannogs are and how that might work. So went into that there. And then Mira's name in Sanskrit means ocean. And in Hebrew, it means light or saintly woman, like a woman of light. So if you think about both of those could refer back to Ashara Dayne, who leapt into the sea. And, of course, the Danes are associated with day, the bright sword, dawn. So, saintly woman, light. Basically, George may have named Amira a name that points back to Ashara Dayne. So, that's...
And of course, like, as the children of Howland Reed and Ashara Dayne, they would be star children, just like in Howl's Moving Castle.
Right. So, like I said, there's more to the theory, but this is a con for Ashara Dayne being Quaithe, is that there's probably a stronger theory here that she could be Diana Reed. Also, the name Diana Reed, that's Howland's wife, Diana Reed. Well, there's a Diana Dane a few generations back. So Ashara may have made up the fake name Diana by changing one letter of her great auntie's name, potentially.
Yeah. And it's also it's through Diana Dane that Dany gets her Dane blood. Again, 2 generations of incest following Aegon, the fifth egg, mean that Dany has a fair amount of Dane and Blackwood blood in her.
That's it. So another con, and we'll talk about this with other characters. We've seen 2 descriptions of Quaithe's eyes. They're wet and shiny, and they're shining with moonlight, but no color is mentioned. So is that because the eyes are in the shadows and you just see the like reflections, but not really the color of the iris? I think that's the deal. However, you know, it's at some point George needs to describe the eye color, right? So we haven't seen purple eyes on Quaithe, and Ashara Dayne famously has purple eyes, but
Famously had purple
and then
eyes.
is 17 years long enough? That's how long it's been since Ashara disappeared or killed herself. Is that long enough to train to become a shadowbinder? I think probably so. I mean, it's an unknowable question. However long George thinks it takes to, become a shadowbinder. So, yeah, Varys' eyes are never described. That's true. Yeah, George kind of cheats a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first time, like, if the shadow from the mask is obscuring the eyes. Like, we've seen that before. He does the same thing with Fagon. Fagon dyeing his hair blue distracts from his purple eyes. It just makes them look more dark blue than anything. And it's not until he washes the dye out of his hair that John Connington notices, like, oh, yeah, his eyes are purple. Not as purple as Rhaegar's, but purple.
So the motive for Ashara, that's the part that does make sense. Ashara Dayne, like I said, close to Rhaegar and all of his party, and so she may have a belief in the prophecies of Azor High Reborn and the prince that was promised. And so the motive to become Quaithe is so that she can, or go to Asshai to learn magic, is so that she can be around to help this savior child whenever they are born. That would be the motive. So that kind of fits. But neither of us think it's Ashara Dayne. So let's move on to the 2 stronger candidates, Shiera Seastar and then Elissa Farman. So Shiera Seastar, of course, she is another one of the great bastards. She's a half-sibling of Bloodraven and Bittersteel and a couple others. I forget who. But she's a sorceress. She's Bloodraven's, it says paramour, but they're really equals. They're lovers, is the point. They never got married. Bloodraven would have, but Shiera preferred to keep them at arm's length, says George. It's just her way. But they were lovers, and Bloodraven was obsessed with her. So was Bittersteel. So it was a bit of like they hated each other because they both liked the same woman. And Shiera Seastar was an avid reader. She spoke many languages, and she was said to bathe in blood and practice sorcery, and maybe she was helping Bloodraven spy on people and stuff. All these things are said about her. So we don't know what the end of her story is. We're just not told. We don't hear that she dies or grows old or flees or disappears. But the end of her story just isn't, we don't have it yet. So it could be that she vanished at some point. Fleeing to Asshai would make sense for Shiera. If she did vanish to escape notice, it'd probably because she wanted to practice more sorcery, and she was already getting a reputation in Westeros, and it was causing political problems. And so she went to Asshai, where everything is permitted. It's like Reddit. It's like 4chan, like we said. And so she went there to potentially disappear and study magic. That could make sense. Once Bloodraven disappeared, maybe she just is not that interested in Westeros anymore. So fleeing to Asshai could make sense for Shiera. And then we have Melisandre theory. And this is a hat tip to Radio Westeros, this is like a 10-year-old theory. This is an old theory. If Melisandre and Shiera Seastar were lovers, is it possible they had a kid? And is it possible that kid is Melisandre? That's the theory. So, heart-shaped face is a description given only to Shiera Seastar, Melisandre, and Jane Westerling, who is, as Tim pointed out, also the granddaughter of a sorceress, for what it's worth. But the heart-shaped face could be something that Mel got from Shiera. Like, they both have it. Mel's looks, her white skin and red eyes and red hair and all that stuff, obviously some of it could be a glamour. However, she kind of looks like an albino who dyed her hair red also. So that could be some part of that those red eyes could be Bloodraven's red eyes. So there you go. Melisandre also seems to be a little different than other red priests. She's sort of going her own way. She's doing this fire transformation thing. She's in the north. It's possible that she has some of Bloodraven's, green seer magic lurking in her capabilities, and that is having an influence on her magical pursuits. Because Melisandre is both a red priestess and a shadowbinder, Tim. So she's already pursuing different lines of magic.
Yeah. I mean, for me, just to, because of course I got to pimp my own video. I'm more partial to my own of course it's my own tinfoil theory that Melisandre is a fling child between Bloodraven and Dany Lothston, but that's something we need more. We need more on these unwritten these blank.
It's not tinfoil at all. I think it's a really strong theory. I think it's just as strong as this theory. In fact,
if we ever get more Dunk and Egg and Dany Lothston shows back up, if she's described with a heart-shaped face, then that's just gonna give me even more firepower.
Yeah, and so of course check out Tim's video for that theory. Interesting that both of them are like maybe she's Bloodraven's daughter. And obviously Melisandre sees Bloodraven in her fires, but as like a wooden mask, like a tree man or something. So it would be funny if that's dad and she doesn't realize it. We don't know if Bloodraven knows or not, if this is true. This is all speculation. So a couple other clues about it. In-house Blackwood, which is where Bloodraven comes from. Crimson Templar, thank you. Yes, Mel is definitely unusual. In the House of Blackwood are names similar to Melisandre's birth name, which is Melanie. Remember, Melanie Lot 7. So in House Blackwood, we find Melantha, Melissa, and Maya. Oh, and also Shiera.
Yes.
So
that was going way, way, way back before the conquest. There was a Shiera Blackwood. She was married to a Durrandon, so she was married to a Storm King.
And those guys represent green seers. So it's potentially a parallel that George put in there to make us think of Shiera Seastar having a child with a green seer, Bloodraven. So pretty cool stuff. And then it creates this tutelage triangle. This is the appeal of the theory, really. So Bloodraven is tutoring Bran. His ex-lover Shiera Seastar is tutoring Daenerys. And their child, Melisandre, is resurrecting and teaching Jon some stuff. So she wants to teach Jon a lot more than Jon will let her. But, we'll get to that. So, yeah. It's a nice little... This is all about this Shiera Seastar, Bloodraven, Melisandre family. It's a weird family from like 150 years ago that are shaping all of our heroes now. So I really like that theory. I'm very attracted to the Quaithe Shiera Seastar theory because of that triangle. I think that just is deliciously ironic. And like I said, Tim, it opens up the question of, if this is true, does Bloodraven know? Does Bloodraven know that Shiera Seastar had his child? Does he know that that child is Melisandre?
And that's like for me, that's always stuck out because a man as controlling as Bloodraven, as Machiavellian as he is, the idea that a child of his would slip by and go unnoticed always just seemed wrong to me, unless, of course, the mother was fleeing something, which is why the Lothston theory, I feel like, works out just as well, because the downfall of House Lothston, what happens to a child whose family's trying to get out of Dodge, like that child being sold into slavery and it slipping between the cracks makes more sense to me than Bloodraven's daughter with Shiera Seastar, the woman he was madly in love with him. He was madly in love with. I'm sorry. That child slipping between the cracks probably would be something more that Bloodraven would keeping. I think Bloodraven would keep a better eye on that kind of child.
So I think it would be in that case that like Shiera gets pregnant and leaves before people realize she's pregnant. That may be part of the timing of it. Okay. Yeah. And so it could be that she then sells her child to the Red Temple, which is what happened to Melisandre, because she saw the future and believed that that needed to happen, like Jon being sent to the wall, or it could be that Shiera fell on hard times, much like a couple of the other Targaryen women. It was one of the Calla Blackfire. Didn't she fall on hard times and like had all her stuff stolen and sold and stuff like that?
Well, Calla Blackfire is the daughter of Daemon, and she was married to Bittersteel. It's more of what happened to the remaining Blackfire women after Meleys the monstrous. That leads us into the road of how does a Blackfire woman end up in a Lyseni pillow house?
That's what I was thinking of. Right. Yeah. So maybe Shiera went that way and fell on hard times and had to give up her child, or her child was stolen from her or something like that. So we don't know. There could be a whole story there. But yeah, any of these theories have a bit of a blank spot. So
yeah, the problem is so much is these just huge blank gaps in our history, because everything after Fire and Blood ends with the regency of Aegon III coming to an end. Then all we know in the in-between is just what we get from the World Book. Until we get to the Dunk and Egg novels, and then we get a little bit of history what's going on then, but that only covers a couple of years till we get to the Second Blackfire Rebellion, and then again, everything after that is just this huge blank slate we don't know the specifics of until we get to our main story. It's given George a lot of room to work with, and it's why, we hope for wins, and then we hope that he'll be able to pump out a Dunk and Egg novel and maybe Fire and Blood Part 2 as the palate cleanser, so we can get start filling in all these gaps in history.
So then we've got a couple other little clues. Just, Shiera's name. The word Shiera in Japanese means thread or clothing, also poetry and painting. And then in Hebrew it means song and music. So makes you think of... What does it make you think of? What were we getting from that?
Oh, well, I brought up when we were first making this, the painting made me think of...
Oh, just the way that Shiera is like a patron of the arts, and she like reads and like, yeah.
Well, it also made me think of the portrait of Dorian Gray, because it said that Shiera and Danelle Lothston, for that matter, they bathed in blood to retain their youth, but the portrait of Dorian Gray is also a story of someone retaining their youth through darker means. So I think George is just having a little, if with the painting thing going on there, and her being a patron of arts, I think it's just George having a little bit of cheeky fun with another, throw in an Oscar Wilde reference, Portrait of Dorian Gray. Here's someone using dark arts to stay young and beautiful.
Well, he does reference Oscar Wilde in other places. That is for sure. So it's definitely an author George likes. The bigger thing I got out of the name Shiera is the fact that it seems to be a common name in George's world, because one of the few Dothraki phrases that George did create before David J. Peterson, fleshed out the entire vocabulary of High Valyrian and Dothraki and stuff. Shieric Kia, and you can see it on the screen here. Shiera Kia, that's the Dothraki name for the comet. It means bleeding star. So Sherek, which is just Shiera with a K on the end, means bleeding, and Kia means star. And so Shiera Seastar kind of means bleeding sea star in George's own parlance. And so we're getting right back to the comet and the long night and this whole idea of this star goddess falling into the sea. We see it with Ashara Dayne. We see it with Shiera Seastar. We see it with Dany and Nissa and all this stuff. You guys are familiar with this archetype. But yeah, it's the idea of moon meteors falling into the sea like the sea dragon. But more importantly, people going into the Weirwood Net Sea, into the Green Sea. So, Shiera Kia, Shiera Seastar, Bleeding Sea Star. It's a pretty cool name. And then with Bloodraven, we get the trident eye colors. So, for example, Shiera Seastar, green and blue eyes. Bloodraven has one red eye. So we've got 3 eyes between them, and they are the colors of the trident or the 3 branches of magic. So it's, again, more to that synergy of Shiera and Bloodraven on the story. Like they seem like a couple that is telling us a lot about the story. So
yeah. And then going back to the triangle tutelage again, because Bloodraven is guiding Bran. He's also at points guiding Jon, because Bloodraven is most likely skin changing Mormont's Raven. Every time it's like King, Jon Snow, King, Corn. It's probably Bloodraven. So it makes sense, like, again, with George loving the parallels, to have Shiera Seastar, the lover of Bloodraven, to be on the other side of the world, sort of guiding Dany. And then for another one, another real quick parallel, Jon gets his own sort of Quaithe, and this is a character we've only seen once, I hope we get more of. He has Morna White Mask. Quaithe, with her red lacquer mask, meets half of the Weirwood imagery. Morna White Mask with her white Weirwood mask is the other half. And where are they? Like, well, Quaithe is coming out of Asshai on the far eastern end of the world. Morna White Mask is a wildling, so she's coming from beyond the wall, the far north. And this is more of this, like, far east, why do so many things in the far east meet up so well with the far north when nothing should seemingly be related? And yet here we are again. Jon gets his own masked witchy woman with Weirwood symbolism.
yeah, Morna White Mask is a good one. And of course, Val's got the Weirwood brooch, which is like a little mask too. So this is Alcoholic Rattlesnake's Shiera Seastar, and it is blue and green. You can follow Alcoholic Rattlesnake on Instagram, by the way. A very cool artist from, I think she's from Prague, somewhere Eastern Europe. So support her. She's done a lot of cool, I use a lot of Alcoholic Rattlesnake art. She's got that great Euron one where he's got the blue wine and there's the stars behind him and stuff. This is Bella Bergholtz. This is Bloodraven and Shiera. This might be one of the best Ice and Fire artworks ever. Like, look at this thing. That is, I mean, those characters are real now, you know. Just, yeah, he already looks corpsey. That's the idea.
Yeah.
The Bloodraven. The cape, the chair. It's just great. And it looks like they're posing for a portrait, obviously. So it's just, this is something that would have happened in, you know, medieval times, Westeros. So, and then here is another one, same artist, Bella Bergholtz, Shiera Seastar.
You know, can you go back to that last one?
Yes.
Real quick. Okay, they look like two people who tried to have an outdoor wedding and it started raining. That's the vibe. Oh, maybe at least the photos might be good.
I just think it's kind of like we're watching you. Like, they're just both very piercing gazes looking right at the camera, you know. In any case. So, is Quaithe Shiera Seastar? The cons, again, with the eyes, we don't get a description of a blue and a green eye. So maybe that's just the shadows, but should be noted. The age starts to come into it. Can shadowbinders extend their lifespan? Probably. If you live in Asshai, you kind of have, I mean, only the shadowbinders can go to Stygiai, Tim. So they seem durable. Like they probably are magically transformed. That's why they wear the masks. They probably look all weird or hideous or something, or reptilian. Who knows? But yeah, they probably can extend their lives, but we don't know that. Melisandre seems to be using fire magic to extend her life, not shadowbinding. So if Quaithe is Shiera Seastar, she's a little too old. So there has to be magic extending the lifespan. Not a big hurdle, but just should be noted.
It's just that our main example of this, of extending someone's life to that point, would be Bloodraven himself. Bloodraven is still alive. He's 125 at this point. So Shiera's a few years younger than him, but still, she would still be over a century old. But what's keeping Bloodraven alive, if we even call it that, the state he's in, is he's hooked up to the Weirwood life support machine. Quaithe, walking around free, not hooked up to any kind of Weirwood or other kind of magical apparatus. That brings in the question of, like, how much can one really extend their life without some kind of, like, hookup similar to what Bloodraven's got going on?
Oh, that's a good point. Shiera Seastar's mother is Serenay of Lys. And so she already has a connection to Essos. So it's like if she needed to flee, she may have gone to Essos first and then eventually ended up in Asshai. But yeah, she's already got one foot out the door if she needs to leave, as far as having that connection. That's a good point. As we mentioned, there's the question of why would Shiera sell her daughter into slavery or to the Red Temple? There could be a good story, but it's a big hole. There's no clue about it. Why does Mel seem to know nothing about Bloodraven or Daenerys? So if Mel is Shiera and Bloodraven's kid, she was sold into slavery before they could tell her anything. So she's limited to her own knowledge and seems to know nothing. It does open the question, could Quaithe and Bloodraven, if Quaithe is Shiera Seastar, could they be in communication? Shiera can reach him with a candle, probably. They've touched each other, obviously, with the two. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. So they could be communicating. Bloodraven obviously has only begun to tell Bran about the world. So the fact that Bloodraven hasn't mentioned Dany or Quaithe to Bran doesn't mean much. We're starting with the basics with Bran. Here's how you skin change the tree. Here's how you eat your friend's brain in a bowl, paste form. So it could be that Bloodraven does know about Daenerys and is communicating, and that this is the point of Quaithe being Shiera Seastar. This would be the whole point of this, would be that it would make, that she probably is in communication with Bloodraven. And so they could be coordinating all of this. Dany sending her north, training Bran, training Jon. They might be in communication. So that's the coolest version of this theory, is that Bloodraven and Quaithe, 150 years later, they're still hot for each other. They're still working things out. They're still the puppet masters. What do you think, Tim?
It's possible, but then I also think of the inverse of that, the darker aspect. What if the reason Shiera fled, if she fled, was to get away from Bloodraven? There's always that option, because from what we're told, Bloodraven proposed to her numerous times, but we're told she felt it funnier to always turn him down. And it makes it seem like Shiera Seastar was a tease, but we also got to remember who's writing this. Maesters, who don't really have, the best view of women. What if it wasn't just this playful, hokey thing? What if Bloodraven got, really stalkerish as time went on? And she's like, okay, this is not fun and games. This is not cute. I've told you no how many times now?
She's like, damn it, if I feel that old man's gnarly, wrinkled hand on my shoulder in my dream one more time, I'm leaving. I told you I hate that.
That's also a possibility, but the idea of them keeping contact again because of this whole prince that was promised prophecy, but we know that in Valyrian this is a gender neutral term, so princess, and them not wanting to be like, look, we got to cover both sides of this because could be John, could be Dany. They both fit the mold, but we don't know for sure. So it could be a tag team, like it could be a duo operation where it's like you focus on this one, I'll focus on that one, and we'll see how things go. Either way, we got all our ground covered.
Mickey's deleting my thirst in the chat. It was over the top. Try to behave, folks. But come on, Mickey, I appreciate the thirst. Mm-hmm. It was borderline. I agree, it was borderline. Calm down there, Stevie. Settle down. All right. Yeah, I mean, Bebe, we got Bebe in the chat setting a bad example. People don't know that Bebe's joking. They just see her talking, and they're like, I could say that too. Mm-hmm. Behave, David, is working. Okay. Yeah, all right. I love y'all. Okay, so that person didn't get banned. They just got their comment deleted, so it's okay. Yes. So this is a good theory. It's a strong theory. It's possible. It has some gaps. It seems if this was true, why didn't George give us some clues about what happened to Shiera? Like, if you're doing this theory, why not give us those clues? Maybe they're coming, but...
Yeah. Because aside from the lines we get about her in Dunk and Egg, that's it. Like, anything after the second Blackfire Rebellion at that point is just completely open blank slate. We never hear about her again. We know that Bittersteel comes back again from the World Book, and we know that they still he still harbors feelings for her. It's possible George might be setting up her to be like a sort of Cimmeril character to Bloodraven's Eldrick and Bittersteel's Yyrkoon. But that's all like that's unknown unknowns right now because we don't know what happened to her, and everything is open for what he would like to do with her character.
And I forgot to show off the Ashara artwork, so just real quick. This is Wolverine, Ashara Dayne. This is Satellite Ghost, Ashara Dayne. This Impressionist Ashara Dayne is by Solar Sea. Gotta love the sort of Spanish hair, kind of North, I don't know, Moorish. It's cool. It's cool. And then we've got because of course, obviously the Dornish inspired by that sort of region of the world, so that fits. And this is by Abend 86. These are the haunting purple eyes there. And this is by Iluas. Pretty cool. And this is Bella Bergholtz, who did the Bloodraven and Shiera that we just looked at. So this is her Ashara Dayne. This is hot. Ashara's hot. This is how Howland sees her. So anyway, just real quick. All right, Elissa Farman. Mm-hmm. This theory is very strong. It is. I was very attached to this previous theory about Shiera Seastar until we got the Elissa Farman stuff in Fire and Blood, and now I'm like, ooh, they're both tasty. So take it away, Tim. I'll let you present the basics to this one.
So Elissa Farman sailed west from Westeros and made it pretty far. We called it Corlys's Blue Monday. Corlys Velaryon, when he makes it to Asshai, this is one of his 9 great voyages. The things that made him...
Sorry.
The thing that made him the richest man in Westeros was in Asshai, he saw a ship in the harbor that he swore was Elissa Farman's sun chaser. So the story of Elissa Farman is she was from House Farman on Faircastle in the Westerlands. And she was the girlfriend of Rhaena Targaryen, the older sister of Jaehaerys the Conciliator. She had been one of Maegor's Black Brides. Before that, she was the wife of Aegon the Uncrowned. And Elissa wanted to sail the world. Like, she wants to explore. She wants to know what's west of Westeros. And Rhaena is like, no, let's just stay here. We got a good life. Elissa ends up stealing 3 dragon eggs from Rhaena, and this becomes the thing that finances this journey that she wants to take. But it becomes a real thing for the Targaryens.
Can I pause you, Tim? I'm going to go get Cleo, who's been doing her best to behave over the last hour and 45 minutes. Tim, carry on with the Elissa Farman story. I'll be back with Cleo. Just wanted so you understand why I'm running down the stairs.
Okay, no problem. All right, so Elissa Farman steals 3 dragon eggs. She then takes a ship from Faircastle, and she arrives in Pentos, where she takes up the name Alice Westhill. From Pentos, she then continues on land, where she then goes to Braavos. And it's in Braavos that she sells the dragon eggs to the Sea Lord of Braavos. And she uses the finances to build the ship Sunchaser to hire a crew. This becomes a whole thing for the Targaryens because Jaehaerys is obviously pissed off. First of all, Rhaena Targaryen tried to keep it under wraps and find Elissa herself. So that's one of the reasons why Elissa had such a long window of opportunity to get away. It's because Rhaena didn't actually come forward to her brother to tell her what happened until a couple days had passed. And so she builds this ship. She hires a crew. Others want to go on with her, and they start sailing west. Eventually, they sail west across the Sunset Sea, and they discover 3 islands, which they'll eventually name for the Conquerors. And on these 3 islands, Cleo. On these 3 islands, they find pink fruits, pigs, and these massive lizards with a venomous bite, and they sound a lot like Komodo dragons. What's really interesting, though, are the pigs. For those who don't know, pigs are not native to islands, but they are on islands all over the world, and that's because mariners would usually leave breeding pairs of pigs on islands because pigs are hardy and durable, and you leave a couple breeding pairs, there's a population explosion. So now this creates what I call pit stop islands. You can stop, hunt down pigs, load up on larder and bacon and all of that. So the point is that the fact that there are pigs on this island means that someone had been there before Elissa and her crew got there. And that lends even more evidence of ancient mariner theory of people sailing across the Sunset Sea.
Those are Farwind pigs, Tim. They're Farwind pigs.
Yep.
Confirmed.
So they spend some time on these islands, making repairs to the ships. Some of the ships, they're like, we can't go on. They limp back to Westeros. Elissa Farman continues west. He's never seen again. And it's said, too, like, in the time that they're sailing across the Sunset Sea, like, things start off good in the beginning, but eventually there are, like, these treacherous storms. The sky turns blood red. Like, the people who went on this voyage with Elissa and made it back to Westeros to tell the story, they make it sound like we sailed to the end of the world. Like, we sailed into Armageddon. Like, the sky turned to blood. All these hurricanes, they just, like, make it really out, like, don't go out past the Sunset Sea. Like, it's terrible. But Corlys claims to have seen Sunchaser, which then leads to the idea of, like, what if Elissa eventually did find land? If she continued sailing west, and if Planetos, as we know it, is round, and assuming that there's no sort of Americas, like, in blocking the way, then theoretically one would eventually make it to the eastern part of Essos. And Asshai, being the most famous port in the far east of Essos, would be a natural place for her to dock.
And Corlys says that he saw a ship in the harbor, that indeed, he says Corlys would swear to his dying day that the ship he saw was Sunchaser. And so that is cool by itself. Elissa Farman made it to Asshai. after stealing some dragon eggs from or from the hatchery at Dragonstone, and then stealing eggs from the Targaryens, selling them in Pentos, and then building a ship, swinging by Old Town, recruiting some high towers, and sailing off into the sea. Like, Elissa Farman is certified. Like, that is some pretty badass stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
However, now she's in Asshai. So could she be Quaithe? Well, what's the reason to think she could be? Quaithe is tutoring Dany and helping Dany learn how to control these dragons that hatched from the eggs that Elissa Farman stole. So there's a very interesting loop here. And if Elissa Farman feels bad about doing this to her girlfriend, Rhaena, she probably does. Her and Rhaena had a long relationship. And even if it didn't end well, you know how that goes. So she stole the eggs. She did what she had to do, got her ships, did her thing. But it would make sense if 100 years later or whatever, 150 years later, she kind of is like, oh, Daenerys, you remind me of my old lover, Rhaena, who she no doubt remembers fondly at this point. And there are some pretty good Dany, Rhaena parallels. They're both similar characters in that they're very independent. They're very strong. Dany is rediscovering Valyrian traditions about the dragon eggs. Rhaena is the one who did the same thing. She's the one who started the tradition of putting the eggs in the cradles, which is probably something the older Valyrians did, I would guess. So there are some parallels there. And also, it could be that what was I going to say? Well, like you said, the promo for Fire and Blood said it would reveal the origin of Dany's eggs. And this story is the only one that we get. So that definitely means that the eggs that Elissa stole are Dany's. And if you doubted that, we found this really great quote. You want to read this one, Tim?
Yes. So, only then did Rhaena Targaryen mount Dreamfire to fly to the Red Keep and inform her brother of what had transpired. Elissa had no love for dragons, she told the king. It was gold she wanted, gold to build a ship. She will sell the eggs. They are worth a fleet of ships. Jaehaerys had received his sister in his solar, with only Grand Maester Bennifer present to bear witness to what was said. If those eggs should hatch, there will be another dragon lord in the world, not one of our own house. They may not hatch, Bennifer said, not away from Dragonstone. The heat, it is known. Some dragon eggs simply turn to stone. Then some spicemonger in Pentos will find himself possessed of 3 very costly stones, Jaehaerys said. Elsewise, the birth of 3 young dragons is not a thing that can be easily be kept secret. Whoever has them will want to crow. We must have eyes and ears in Pentos, Tyrosh, Myr, all the free cities. Offer rewards for any word of dragons.
So that's fun because when Dany does hatch her dragons, the word spreads everywhere, all throughout the world. And even when people just hear it as rumors, it's like, oh, I don't know. That's an interesting rumor. And then, of course, go ahead, Tim.
And what did the eggs start off with? Like, when Illyrio presents them, they have petrified. So they are 3 very costly stones presented to her by a Pentoshi cheesemonger. Not a spicemonger, but Illyrio's got his hands in many pies. Like, Tyrion calls him a cheesemonger as an insult, but really he's in all kinds of businesses, spices included. So, over time, Illyrio becomes that very Pentoshi spicemonger that Jaehaerys alluded to 200 years before it actually happened.
Yeah, and so this is just one of those clues that it's like, oh, okay. Pentoshi spicemonger. Gotcha.
So something I thought, like, if Elissa is Quaithe, when Quaithe sees the dragons, the coloring of the dragons may have reminded her of the eggs that she stole.
Yep, it would. So that would create a nice parallel. What are the motivations? We talked about Elissa's character. She is into exploring the unknown. She's curious about the world. So if she ends up in Asshai, well, Asshai is a great place for a curious person. You can learn about anything there. Birthing songs, Dothraki stuff, surgery, sorcery, you know. So maybe Elissa made home there and began studying things and eventually found her way to magic. And, you know, her connection to the Targaryens may have sparked that interest. So there's, again, a little bit of a gap in the story, but you can see how it could be filled logically. And the name Elissa is Greek, and it means from the Blessed Isles. And Elissa Farman finds 3 islands that she names after the Conqueror's dragons. So...
yeah, because how the eggs end up in the possession of Illyrio is, again, another one of these mysteries, because what we're talking about happens in the year 54 AC, and when we start our main story, when we meet Dany, it's 298. So it's been almost 250 years since the eggs were stolen between when Dany receives them. So how Illyrio comes into contact with them is anyone's guess. All we know is they were sold to the Sea Lord of Braavos. When the Sea Lord is confronted, he plays coy. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any eggs. How about I just forgive all your debts and we'll call it even? So we have 2 centuries of these eggs just sort of floating around, possibly passing between hands, sold and resold. We good?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Sold and resold until finally Illyrio gets his hands on them. But what's interesting is because Illyrio, when he presents them to Dany, he tells them that they are from the Shadowlands. Now, if these were eggs that were sold to the Sea Lord of Braavos, that might not be true. But if Elissa Farman did make it to Asshai, the woman who stole them makes it to the Shadowlands, then in a roundabout way, yes, the eggs are from the Shadowlands.
So, let's see here. Yeah, I like that they're sort of from the Shadowlands because Elissa went there. There was a question about House Farm, and are they First Men related? They are. Maybe she took the eggs for more than to fund her exploration. I'm not understanding the question because she took the eggs and then sold them. So she didn't keep them. She didn't use them for magic. But the Farmans do have a lot of green seer symbolism. Their words are, the wind our steed, and the guy leaps from a tower, so it's flying and falling. There's a lot of symbolism, but we're not going to get into that today because that's more cryptic, weirwood net stuff. It doesn't really have anything to do with
also,
go ahead.
The one great thing about the Farmans too is that it's also some of George's best horror writing, and it's written on a very small scale. The murder mystery of Andrew Farman.
Yeah.
It's not for this story, but just for some good horror writing, and for things that are like less, more localized and more low key. The story of Andrew Farman, Rhaena's husband, while she was seeing Elissa, so good.
Yeah, that whole thing is pretty great. Do you think that Shiera and Missandei, both being polyglots and avid readers of ancient scrolls, might be a hint towards Shiera being Quaithe? It's hard to say because all of these women are kind of a similar archetype. So it could be, but it's hard to say. What is her link with Marwyn? Well, Starry Wisdom Church would be the link. You know, Marwyn's been to Asshai and uses a glass candle. So that's why I speculate that he could be a Starry Wisdom cultist. And he obviously is concerned with the end times, just like Quaithe is. So I think it kind of fits, but that's just a theory. They may or may not know each other. It's hard to say. Maybe they all wear the masks at the meetings. You don't really know who anyone is. So hard to say.
Marwyn would have to be communicating to someone with his glass candles. So Quaithe possibly being one of his contacts, it makes sense, but we just don't have direct confirmation.
Marwyn even has a Valyrian steel mask he can wear if he wants to. That probably works pretty well in the Shadowlands. Yeah. And then thanks to Ion and Crimson Templar, if Ashara it's Jyanna, but yeah. Why does she need to hide her identity? House Reed is highborn enough for her to marry into. Nobody seems to be after her. Well, That gets into Tourney of Harrenhal stuff. Why? Well, that's the question for Ashara Dayne, period. Like, if she didn't die, why did she fake her death? There's a few different answers to that. Do you have one off the top of your head? It's kind of a little bit afield from what we're talking about.
Well, in the show version of events, it wasn't Ned that killed Arthur Dayne. It was Howland Reed. Or Howland Reed got him with that like blow dart, and that's what opened the way for Ned to finish him off. So marrying the man who played a role in your brother's death, there is a there's definitely a taboo in that could be seen. But it's like this weird thing again, because we've talked about before, like how Ned and the Danes were on opposing sides in Robert's rebellion, and yet there is a mutual respect. Ned returns, like Ned did not have to return Dawn to House Dayne. He could have Ironborn that thing and said, right of conquest, it's mine now. That's probably how the Ironborn got their Valyrian steel swords. But he returns it. He returns it to what was technically an enemy house. And then House Dayne, Eddard Dayne, they name him. He is named, or Edric Dayne, but he's called Ned. He's named in honor of Ned Stark. So it is like this weird thing, like this mutual respect, even though they were on opposing sides during the war.
Yeah, so we're not sure. We need more info, I think, is the answer. Here's an interesting question. When they say someone comes from the Shadowlands, do you necessarily mean Asshai, or could Quaithe be from Stygia or deeper? So the only place people live there is Asshai, but only the Shadowbinders go up to Stygia, the corpse city at the heart of the shadow. So it's a city or a shrine. People might be there. No one is probably from Asshai, though, since children don't seem to survive there. I think you come to Asshai, and then you're from there when you've lived there a while. It's kind of, once you go live in Asshai, you're kind of committing to it for the long haul. So,
I mean, that becomes one of those things of, like, again, it's how truth, like, yeah, the line that there are no children in Asshai makes for very creepy, good horror, but again, it's one of those questions of how true is it really? We know that the further east we go, the more insane the stories become, the less information we have. Although, in the time of Yi Ti, it said that the Scarlet Emperors moved their capital to guard against Reavers from the Shadowlands. So I think that there's a possibility that it's just that all we know, the only two cities we know of in the Shadowlands are Stygia and Asshai. We don't know of any other towns or whatever, but I would assume that there's probably people living out there. We just, without direct eyes on the ground, we don't know.
Here's a 20. Hope for more Duncan Egg rereads on the two of you. Well, we read them all, but we might do them again. They were my absolute favorite streams. Maybe switch up the roles. Well, we'll do them again without all the symbolism. We did a lot of symbolism stuff when we were reading through there. So we might do them again just for the story and the voices. Is Quaithe really someone other than herself? Well, that's what we said. We're not probably, but who knows? Maybe she's just Quaithe.
That is all. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, not everyone has to have a secret identity. So, yes, is Quaithe just Quaithe? Is she just a shadow woman from Asshai? The possibility is there, but but there's also all this murkiness about her, and the fact that she comes from the most magical city that we know of, and a place that we know that people flee to, that they escape to, that they run away to, makes the idea of her being someone who, for whatever reason, fled Westeros, whether it be Shiera Seastar, whether it be Elissa Farman, like, achieving her goal, sailing across the Sunset Sea and making it there. It's so tangible and so juicy because of all the implications that surround Asshai.
Somebody's asking if we could see Asshai on the TV show. No, they're not going to do that because to create a location takes a lot of work, and you're not going to do that unless you film a bunch of scenes somewhere. And then once you make a set like Harrenhal, then you do a whole bunch of stuff there. So yeah, no, we're not going to see Asshai on TV. Sorry, definitely
Yeah.
not.
The other thing about Asshai is built up to be one of those places that to actually see it is only going to lead to
Yeah,
disappointment.
totally.
Because either it has to be as crazy and creepy as it's been made out to be, or it has to have a sense of normalcy. The only time I think we would ever see Asshai is if we get this proposed animated YT show. That's because that puts us just in the vicinity, but we don't know what they would mean to actually
Right.
do
Yeah,
with
that's
that.
so far down the line we can't
And that
speculate.
show has absolutely no book basing. Like it's essentially going to be high profit fan fiction.
So wrapping up this stream, which I need to do, we've got the cons for Elissa. She was never known to practice magic. That's the major con. She would be very old as well, but again, that can be solved with sorcery. But yeah, Elissa never known to practice magic. She stole dragon's eggs and then sailed really far. So there's a bit of a missing step there. So, so to summarize this, Tim, I would say that Elissa and Shiera are both strong candidates. Ashara could make sense, but we're missing some evidence there. And we have to say so long to Howland Reed wife theory, which, that's fine. Any of these characters could have an interesting parallel to Dany. They all have connections to Dany, or Targaryens, or something like that. Quaithe seems to be helping Dany become Azor High Reborn, which more or less could fit the motivations of all three of these people. There are reasons for all three of them to want to do that, which we talked about. And none of these women really have a reason to try to mislead Dany that we could think of. Like Ashara Dayne is friends with the Targaryens, Elissa dated a Targaryen, and she stole the eggs to make her a ship, but I don't think she is going to resent Dany. There's not really any through line there. So
Yeah.
they all have similar names. Shiera and Ashara are very similar, and then Elissa is one of those names that's similar to all the Night's Queen names, like Lysa and Elissa with an A, and what's her name? Lyanna, those people. And then, so let's see, all three women also have that falling into the sea imagery. And I think this is all Nissa Weirwood Net Sea stuff, but Ashara leaps into the sea, and she's associated with stars. Shiera's name means bleeding sea star, and Elissa Farman disappeared across the sunset sea. And then we've got Elissa's tears in the veil, which is more of falling water woman imagery. So there's a greater archetype here that George is working at with all these people, which makes it I guess what I'm saying is that you can't really use symbolism to figure this one out because all of our candidates are similar archetypally. So let's do a poll and ask the chat who they think Quaithe is. But it is who is Quaithe? What do you say, Tim?
I like Elissa Farman the most, but after that, I like the idea that Quaithe is Quaithe. That Quaithe is actually from Asshai. And that's not because I don't like the Shiera Seastar thing, but more because of how much Bloodraven has to do, because of how much Bloodraven shares with Eldrick of Melniboné. I think Shiera Seastar having a fate like that of Cimmerel, and then that adds, if that ends up being the case, that adds more weight to when Bloodraven is talking to Bran about the brother he loved, the brother that he hated, the woman he pined for. If what happens to Cimmerel, something similar happens to Shiera Seastar, and that's how her story ends.
I'm very surprised by this poll so far. Very surprised. Quaithe being Quaithe is extremely boring, and I do not think that will be the answer. That is funny. It is leading the poll.
I mean, I understand too, because there reaches a point where people just get sick of like secret identities. Like not everyone.
I've just always thought this was one because like Shiera and Elissa theories both make a ton of sense. Oh, don't let me influence you.
Mm-hmm. No, you vote the way you feel, chat.
I think that we've got two really strong theories, so I feel like it's going to be one of those two. But
yeah. I mean, it's just interesting too that they picked the name Quaithe because something
it's a really cool made up name, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything.
But something I noticed in the Shadow, everything that we have named from the Shadowlands, Asshai, Stagai, Azor, Ahai, Quaithe, they all have this AI like prefix to them. It seems to just be part of the Asshai language, and Quaithe fits the mold on it, like this AI thing. So, if picking the name, if they are someone secret, picking a name like Quaithe means like they really did their research because they picked what would sound like a Shadowlander name, unlike Melisandre, which does not have the AI.
Could Quaithe, is it a mutation of a word that is a word? I can't even think of what. I think it's a nonsense word that George made up. I don't think it means anything. Yeah. If you search for meaning of name Quaithe, you only get Quaithe Ice and Fire stuff. Oh, here's the old Westeros. 2013, Westeros.org write-up on Quaithe Shiera Seastar. Let's see if they got anything we missed. So, Quai, Quay, is a French word for dock. It is also okay, so the weird old English spelling that's pronounced key but looks like quay is from the same thing.
And Asshai is a port city, so dock, port.
Aithe as a suffix is similar to the English word stave, which also means dock. Docks are okay. Let's see. Quay and stave. If you put those together, you get quave. Let's see. Interesting idea. And yeah, this is 2013 Westeros.org forum. This is before I ever wrote a theory or did. Actually, I'd messed around and written something, but not any of my official theories.
Oh, Quaithe is a dock, ship in the harbor. Elissa Farman again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, the name applies again to Elissa more than the other two.
Quaithe means to make known in Scottish. Kythe. That's interesting. So, yeah, Shiera, Elissa. I like the Shiera theory the best because of the tutorship triangle thing. Mm-hmm. The Elissa Farman theory is like, why did George take Elissa Farman to Asshai and then dump her there? It just seems like a bit of a smoking gun. George didn't write Elissa until after A Clash of Kings. Yeah, but that's the thing about being a gardener, is that like he may have had the beginning of an idea for who they were and then fleshed it out later. Quaithe, Scottish Gaelic. It means cup. Yeah, I don't know about that one, Sean. I think the dock that's pretty strong. But anyways, this is why I wanted, you see why I wanted to do the stream. The Elissa and Shiera theories are both strong, and even the Ashara Dayne theory could make sense if George decides that's what it is, and he backfills us with clues. So, wanted to present all three of those, and those are all fun characters to talk about. And there you go. So, while this poll is running, do you have final thoughts on the Church of Starry Wisdom? What do you think their objective might be in the story, Tim?
Well, first I want to comment on like why is Elissa dumped off into Asshai? And I think one of the reasons there is there needs to be some kind of reasoning as to why so much of this Far Eastern myth, the things that, as far as we know, are supposed to be furthest away from Westeros as possible, have so much in common with Westeros. Well, if it turns out that sailing west across the Sunset Sea does land you in the eastern port of Essos, then it makes sense, because it makes it seem as if this thing that we're supposed to view as the farthest away lands possible are actually a lot closer than we think. That lends credence to why so much of Far Eastern myth links up with Westeros. It also makes good Queen Ali's line about, even if you send me to the king, even you can marry me to the king of Mosavie or Lord of the Grey Waste, I'll still find my way back. She's talking as sends me to the ends of the earth. Well, if the ends of the earth are actually not that far away, then it underscores that entire thing. Now, as for the Church of Starry Wisdom, again, my one issue with the Church of Starry Wisdom is because it is a word for word direct name ripped from Lovecraft. So it just makes me think, like, I don't think we're actually going to get it in A Song of Ice and Fire, unless George creates his own completely new version of it. But I think what's important is what the Church of Starry Wisdom originally meant in Lovecraft and what narrative purpose it now sets up in A Song of Ice and Fire, which I think George is doing with Rellorism. Because in the original Lovecraft, again, the patron deity of the Church of Starry Wisdom is a chaos god. And in A Song of Ice and Fire, we have Rellorism, a god of fire and shadow, but he's also a very jealous god. And Rellorism links up well with Zoroastrianism, but also with Christianity, specifically the worst aspects of Christianity. The way that Relloris burn other gods, that it's a like the Rellorism spreads really through violence. If we think about it, it's like the worst aspects of Christianity, that this is a jealous god. And it makes sense too. That's why I love the idea of Azor Ahai being a sort of Jesus figure to this religion. But what if the Messiah was actually evil? This religion that seems to spawn from the Shadowlands, it makes sense that they would want to worship a god of fire and light in a place that only gets an hour of sunlight. But at the same time, it's like your patron deity and the seeming Messiah figure seem to have more in common with the devil and the Antichrist than the God and the Messiah that George is drawing from in creating them. Mute it.
I do think he's doing an inversion there, with the whole like Rellorism having a bad Jesus, or something like that. At the same time, I think the Church of Starry Wisdom being founded by the Bloodstone Emperor doesn't preclude the idea that Starry Wisdom cultists today are concerned with the long night problem. So I was asking you, like, what is, with the parallel to Lovecraft, there's this black tomb of Nefrin Ka that has all this secret knowledge written on it. And I was asking you, does anybody ever really, let it out? And the answer is no. And everybody who goes down there and tries to read it gets murdered by the cult. But George seems to be doing a twist here, because whatever the truth is that's hidden, that's hidden in Asshai is clearly something that does need to come out. Dany does need to learn. She is going to get a glass candle from Marwyn and learn something about Asshai. And obviously she needs to learn what caused the long night, so she knows how to fix the new one that's coming soon. So I guess George is kind of he's not as scared of the forbidden knowledge as Lovecraft. Lovecraft is very scared of stuff. George is like, yes, it's scary, but sometimes you got to try to grab it anyway. It's a sword without a hilt, but it's better than no sword. So
again, that's why I'm always about parallels and foils, because yes, in Lovecraft, the original Church of Starry Wisdom, they very much do not want their secrets to get out. They are all about protecting the secrets of Nephren-Ka. Whereas at Asshai, no, Asshai is open. Everyone is welcome. Come. It's like they want people to come and read and take part in the forbidden knowledge. It's like the Harvard for anyone who wants to learn black magic. Come one, come all. So yeah, it is very, very different. But I do think that Bloodstone Emperor being the founder of George's version of the church, and the original church coming from this Nephren-Ka, the Black Pharaoh, and how much of Bloodstone Emperor's story mimics that of Nephren-Ka. I do think that like the trajectory of what happens to Bloodstone Emperor, what happens in the aftermath of the Long Night, is going to follow the story of Nephren-Ka. And Nephren-Ka winds up in his end, ultimately comes in his black sarcophagus, his stone coffin. For an inverse of that, what would be the Song of Ice and Fire inverse to the black stone coffin would be something like a white weirwood prison. And we also know, because what does weirwood do? Weirwoods don't die, they petrify. So they become white stone. That is why I'm like, the idea of where is Azor Ahai now? Probably, like his body, probably buried beneath a weirwood. He's wrapped up in the roots of a weirwood, and he is locked inside the weirwood net. And
the point is that this forbidden knowledge is going to be accessed. Okay, so Bran is getting at weirwood net knowledge. Dany's going after the knowledge in Asshai. So Mickey, I want you to delete the messages about Dave, you look tired. That's the one I want deleted. Dave, do you have an OnlyFans is okay. Dave, I hate the ones that are like, you look tired. I know, I'm tired. I don't sleep that much. I don't need to be told that. No one ever needs to be told that they look tired, by the way. They know. And it's more that I look stoned than tired, by the way, also. Yeah, it's okay, Mickey. We're getting on the same page. We're getting there. It's okay. I'm not really offended. It's the end of the stream. I'm trying to be entertaining. I'm tired. I'm trying to wake myself up by being excited and cranky. Yeah, exactly. I like a hot, tired man. Thank you, babe. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Orange Tabby. I saw all of your borderline inappropriate comments as well. I appreciate that. And no, I don't have an OnlyFans. I'm against OnlyFans. I'm not for it. No, I don't have one. And you gotta, yeah, it's invite only. I mean, it doesn't exist. I mean, okay, so that's pretty much the story. Yeah? I am the shield against thoughts in the chat. God bless you, Mickey. Okay, so I should do some channel stuff real quick. Little housekeeping. Next week, I've got another rerun coming. It's no, it's not a rerun. It's the Littlefinger stream that I did with Tim. Were you there? Was that me, you, and Nettles, or was that me, Sean, and Nettles?
Which one
was the one where Nettles did the Lysa death speech?
Oh, yeah, because I was doing the hey nani nani, hey nani nani.
Yeah, okay. So that one got demonetized right after we did it, and I took it down months ago. So no one has seen the Littlefinger stream in a while. However, Mickey has edited it for me, and now I'm going to add pictures, and we're going to put it back out this week. So, yeah, it's basically Girl Nettles' finest moment on, well, I won't say on YouTube, on my channel anyway. It was incredible. And I will have I'll have new content coming. In case you didn't know, I moved, new house, everything's different, and so that's why I'm tired. And so I'll have a Jon Snow Azor Ahai video coming out hopefully a week from this Tuesday. So we'll get the Littlefinger video this week, and then Azor Ahai Jon next week, and then we'll be back on a normal schedule with actually increased content in the future as we get other people editing my video other than me, which is great. So let's see. That's what's going on with me. And yes, thank you for coming on, Tim. Your YouTube channel is, of course, Greyways Tim. What are you working on of late?
Not much, to be honest. Like, real life has gotten in the way. My plans are still to continue on with Daemon and Macbeth. I do want to do. I think I might wait till season 3 of House of the Dragon. I want to do a video about the Red Kraken, Dalton Greyjoy, but there's so little fan art of him, and I don't think we're going to get any real art until we get the actual character, which probably not going to happen until season 3. But I do want to do a Dalton Greyjoy, Dagon Greyjoy video, because I do see them as the building blocks for what eventually becomes Euron. This idea of what is a Lord Reaper of Pike? What should a King of the Iron Islands be? Well, a lot of it's going to be Dalton Greyjoy, who I imagine would be like, this is what was Euron like at 16? Dalton Greyjoy. What was Euron like when he matured a little bit? Dagon Greyjoy, the last Reaper.
Yeah, your Dagon Greyjoy video would just be pictures of your cat. Dalton, rather. That's all it would be. It's just, we don't have art. We're just using this cat, so.
Mm-hmm. But we do have plans.
And let's see. So subscribe to the channel. Join the Patreon if you want, and then you can get some extra content, which I'm starting to do, more extra content. If you've subscribed to Patreon, you should have a Discord link when you join, so you can join the Discord. If you do the YouTube channel member, the join button below me, you become a channel member squisher, and same thing. You'll get an invite to the Discord. It is in the membership tab. I need to post a new one, but yes.
Yeah.
Join.
I would say the thing I'm looking most forward to is, we haven't set a date, but the world building stream. I am going to write a lot for that and submit it to you in advance so that we can make it, so that we could put it in some kind of order and it's not just me jumping around rambling, but it's going to be a lot of George's influence. So we'll get more original Church of Starry Wisdom, more of the Dreamlands, more of Conan. It's going to be massive. We're gonna work through it and make. I'm
gonna put a leash on you, Tim. I'm gonna need like an actual physical leash that goes through the screen. You can yank on it. No, it's gonna be a Lovecraft lore summit. So all of the stuff that Tim is always talking about, we're going to go through it in a systematic fashion and show you what George is doing with it all. So that'll be fun. That's coming soon as well. Yeah, chat, you can do with that what you want. Okay? You do that what you want.
I just know there have been people in chat have been wanting me to talk more Conan, and it's going to happen. It'll happen because so much of the Silver Sea and all that stuff is so much Conan.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. I do need to get some sleep, apparently, and also go take care of my other bird. So thanks for joining me today. It's been a great audience. Lots of people came. And, Quaithe. Who is she? Let's ask the chat. Let's ask the poll. Quaithe is Quaithe, apparently. Quaithe is no one. Wasted all that time, Tim. Just Quaithe. No, I'm kidding. Shiera is second. Elissa third. Huh? Surprising. All right, guys. Love you, and I will see you soon. Next, like I said, video this week, Littlefinger, and then next Sunday. What was it going to be next Sunday? I think we need to confirm. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. There will be a stream next Sunday. So thanks to all my mods in the chat, and I'll see you next time.